Howie Roseman and the Eagles making a sneaky good signing of a former second round pick at the wide receiver position. Plus, Brandon Graham, not fully retired just yet, despite announcing his retirement just a few weeks ago, might be back for 2025. That's what we're talking about on today's show. I am Jake Chipper filling in here on Eagles Now for Chase Sr. And guys, this is exactly why you subscribe to the channel. Even when Chase isn't here and he can't make a video, we still provide you with breaking news coverage. When the Eagles make a signing, we always have you covered no matter what. Best place for Eagles videos all year long. So be sure, hit that sub button and lock us in here on Eagles Now. Ian Rapaport breaking the news just moments ago. The Eagles have agreed to terms with wide receiver Terrace Marshall Jr. as a former Panthers, Niners, and Raiders wide receiver gets a 1-year deal. So the Eagles bring in a high pedigree wide receiver who has yet to really make an impact in his NFL career. But I think despite the lack of production that he's had, could be a sneaky good signing. And here's why. As a former second-round pick in 2021, we know the Eagles and Howie Roseman love to go this route of signing guys who, although they haven't lived up to expectations, do have high draft pedigree. And Terrace Marshall had that coming out of LSU, being drafted in the second round by the Carolina Panthers. And really, since he's been drafted, he's been in some pretty poor situations. Panthers have been an abysmal organization for the last few years, bad quarterback play all around. Went to the Niners, didn't play, though, with the Niners, and then spent some time with the Raiders, and we know what the Raiders quarterback situation has been looking like. Now he'll be here with the Eagles in a better offense with Jalen Hurts. Certainly has some more tools around him and some more help with a better organization to help him maybe reach some of that untapped potential, because he's still just 24 years old. Still a young player, still plenty of room to grow, has a lot of career in front of him if he can figure things out here in Philadelphia. And look, it's a cheap prove-it deal at the end of the day. Just a 1-year contract that's going to be for minimal money, so it's really not much of a risk at all here by the Eagles, taking a chance on a player who at one point in time was thought of to be a good potential receiver in the NFL. But look, as you can see, since he was drafted, just has not been able to put it all together on the field. As a rookie, just 17 catches, 138 yards in 13 games. Didn't do much. Then year 2 shows a little bit more. You're thinking, okay, maybe we have something here. 28 catches, almost 500 yards, just 1 touchdown. And then heading into year 3, building some momentum over there in Carolina. You're thinking this is the year he can finally do it. He can finally break out as maybe a high-end number 2, high-end number 3 receiver. Just 9 games played, 19 catches, 139 yards. Ends up leaving Carolina, spent some time with San Francisco, and spent a little bit of time as well with the Raiders last season. But just 3 catches, 41 yards. Of course, didn't get much opportunity. So, you're taking a chance on a player who is very, very much still unproven at this point in his career. Now, of course, when you think about the talent the Eagles have at the wide receiver spot, he will be able to learn from guys like A.J. Brown, guys like Devontae Smith. They were able to bring in somebody like Jahan Dotson, who, the Eagles don't use a whole lot of 3 wide receiver sets, and their third receiver doesn't get involved all that much, but still had a pretty big impact at times, especially in that Super Bowl. So he joins a group now with some young guys like Anais Smith and Johnny Wilson to try to potentially make this roster. And I think, if nothing else, it's a depth play at the end of the day. Somebody that can maybe be, if you want to keep a 6 wide receiver, that 6th guy on your roster, if he can maybe contribute to special teams as well. But again, we know how Howie Roseman operates. We know how this Eagles front office operates. They see a guy who, coming out of a big-time school in the SEC in LSU, has some draft pedigree. They think, okay, well, with our coaching and with our player development, maybe we can get the most out of him and get a guy that has talent but has yet to be tapped into. So what do you guys think of this signing here of Terrace Marshall Jr.? Give me a grade down in the comments section, A, B, C, D, or F. Given that it's a 1-year deal, prove-it deal, he's going to be motivated to play, and it's not for a whole lot of money, I think you can give it a B and just see what he can do in training camp and if he can make a push to make this roster. Now, coming up next, pretty interesting topic here. Brandon Graham, is he not fully retired? He appeared on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams and left the door open a little bit for a potential return in 2025. So we're going to dive into that. But first, got to give a shout out to today's sponsor here on Eagles Now, and that is Game Time. Game Time is the best app in the ticketing marketplace with last-minute tickets, flash deals, views from your seats before you buy, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time is absolutely the best place to be getting your tickets. They make it even easier and faster to get tickets, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the start of your event, whether it's a sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, a theater event, you name it. Any event you want to go to, Game Time has the tickets for you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And Game Time has some great features as well that make the app even better. Zone deals help you save even more money when you choose a section. Like Game Time, choose your seats. They have an all-in pricing feature where they show you the total for your tickets up front, so you're not hit with any surprise fees at checkout. And with Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. If you want to catch maybe a Phillies game, as they're off to a hot start in the 2025 season, looking to do what the Eagles just did and win a championship. They'll have a big series coming up at home against the San Francisco Giants, who are also off to a hot start. Be sure to get your tickets through Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So Brandon Graham, not done yet. Graham appeared on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams, and he said he's only 90% retired. Sounds to me like that's not 100. And if I know math, that means there's still a chance he could return to play for the Eagles next season. Here's exactly what Brandon Graham had to say. I'm 90% retired. The 10% is how much I want to continue to train the way I'm training. You know, training for a game is different, but I haven't really changed that yet. I just want to go out there and speed it up to where I want to look good and make sure I'm staying fit. And while I'm still rehabbing my arm, of course, he tore that tricep heading in the Super Bowl. I'm making sure that when I do retire, I'm staying in the habit of that, because a lot of guys tell me that when you leave, you've got to make sure you stay in the habit of working out. So it does sound to me like the door is still open for a BG return. Now, of course, you know, when players retire, they still work out. They want to stay in shape, things like that. But, you know, in working out and getting back into the flow of things after maybe taking a little bit of time off after the season, players like Brandon Graham, you know, kind of had that urge to get back out there and get back with their teammates in the weight room and things like that, and get back into the flow of an NFL season. So for someone like BG, who plays the game with so much heart, so much passion in this city, it makes sense that as he's starting to ramp those things back up, he's thinking about getting back out there on the field. And look, last year still had a very, very good season in limited snaps. A 78 PFF overall grade. Are you kidding me? That is tremendous. An 80 run defense grade. Still a 71.8 pass rush grade with 3.5 sacks, 20 pressures, 13 hurries, 3 quarterback hits on just 169 pass rush snaps. So he doesn't need a whole lot of time to be successful. And look, whether Graham's done or not, of course, we talked about his retirement here on the show and gave him his flowers for the tremendous player he's been. I mean, picked 13th overall back in 2010. And some people had some reservations about the pick at the time, taking him ahead of Earl Thomas. But since then, 2-time Super Bowl champ, had that strip sack of Tom Brady, returned versus Kansas City this year, second-team All-Pro in 2016, a Pro Bowler in 2020, 76.5 career sacks. That's third all-time for Philly, and he's number 1 in games played in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. So no doubt a legend, and look, whether he wants to return or not, the Eagles have made some moves here at the edge spot, preparing to lose a player like him and players like Josh Sweat and other guys along the defensive line as well, like Milton Williams. You know, Nolan Smith took a huge jump up this past season. Jalen Hunt was very good down the stretch and in the playoffs. Still have Bryce Huff on the roster. You bring in somebody like Josh Uche. You bring in a player like Azeez Ojulari from the New York Giants, and you bring back Patrick Johnson as well after a couple of years away from the team. So I think they're kind of set. You could also draft a guy. I don't think Brandon Graham coming back would stop them from drafting a younger guy either. So I don't think they need necessarily to have Brandon Graham back. But look, if BG wants to come back. No doubt in my mind, you let him return and you let him see the field. An absolute legend for this team. And as we saw last year, he still has some ability to get it done out there on the field. I don't think this would be like he comes back and he's kind of in the locker room and, no doubt he'd be a big voice and a big force in this locker room and a leader, but I think he still would have something to show. So again, he said he's 90% retired, so still more likely than not that his NFL career is over, but there's a chance it's not, and we could get to see Brandon Graham return to maybe win a third Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles next season. Predict it for me before we hop on out of here. Do you think Brandon Graham will play in 2025? Give me a Y for yes and for no. Thank you all for tuning in to today's show. Don't forget to hit that sub button, and we'll see you next time here on Eagles Now.